I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. God didn't make a mistake when He made me. I will not be defined by my past failures, shortcomings, or struggles. God used them to develop me into who I am today. I refuse to allow anyone to make me feel less than who God made me to be. He says I'm precious. He says I'm valuable. He says I'm worth dying for. Yes, I have issues, but they don't have me. Yes, I have problems, but I have perfect peace because I trust the problem solver. I will have a good day. I will walk in victory because I belong to you. I'm super victorious. I am free. I'm the righteousness of God. I'm desperate for your representation. I'm desperate for your manifestation. I'm desperate for your demonstration. I am the desired nation. Well, praise our God. Glad to be back here with you on Sunday morning to do our best to rightly divide the word of truth. So we want to go back to Second Samuel, and we'll read we'll go to Second Samuel 16 again, start with verse 22, and then we'll back to Second Samuel 11. Is that all right? All right, Second Samuel chapter 16, verse 22 says, So they pitched a tent for Absalom on the roof of the palace, and Absalom slept with his fathers, that being David's concubines, in the sight of all Israel. Second Samuel chapter 11, verse 2 says, Then it happened one evening that David arose from his bed and walked on the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman bathing, and the woman was very beautiful to behold. Verse 5 says, And the woman, being Bathsheba, conceived. So she sent and told David and said, I am with child. I am with child. We want to continue in our series, Roof Problems, with today lights, camera, action. Lights, camera, action is a traditional cue to let the film crew know that we're about to start another take. It's the beginning of a new take. You say, well, John, what is a take? A take is a single continuous recorded performance. So we have David here, who is the king of all of Israel. And we told you last week that Israel was going to battle, and he stayed home from battle. So we told you he was powerful enough to be out of position and still win. Israel still had, they gained a decisive victory. Even later on after this, Joab would tell him, listen, come on, king, we need you to come and take the credit for this victory so that I don't have to do it. Come get credit so that we can put this king's crown that weighs 75 pounds on your head. So David could be out of position and still win because he had strategy, he had process, he had people in place to do what needed to be done, to be where he needed to be. But David was also powerful enough to where he abandoned what he demanded. We call that an abuse of power. He demanded respect. He demanded loyalty. He demanded hard work from his people, but he abandoned that position himself. David goes on the roof in the evening and sees Bathsheba bathing, although he's supposed to be on the battlefield fighting. Now, when David sees Bathsheba bathing, she's beautiful, and he abuses his power as king. He calls her over. He gets her over. He lays with her, and she becomes pregnant. And we told you this Bathsheba, she was the wife of Uriah, one of David's mighty men. She was the daughter of Eliam, one of David's mighty men. And she's the granddaughter of Ahithophel, one of David's counselors. So David's lust caused him to disrespect men that he depended on, that he needed, and he trusted. And we even told you how loyalty is something else when loyalty becomes a one-way street. So in verse 5, first time Bathsheba talks, only time we see her talk in chapter 5, and the woman conceived, so she sent and told David and said, I am with child. And so last time we told you that what happened to David was that conception is blind. He learned that conception was blind. Conception does not have perception. Conception doesn't recognize status. It doesn't recognize power. Conception doesn't recognize circumstance. We also told you that David, he stayed behind so that he could have rest, but that rest turned into recovery. He had to try to save face. He had to try to get things back in order. He had to try to get it reeled back in because he had lost control of this thing with his flesh. But also what happened in this moment for David was he had unintended but deliberate responsibility. Let me deal with that again. Unintended because he didn't mean for this to happen. He knew Bathsheba meant for her to get pregnant. But it was deliberate because they knew exactly what they were doing. So now David has responsibility. He has a requirement to do something. Remember, I told you that people don't want accountability, no responsibility. Accountability being, don't ask me to do nothing. Responsibility, don't ask me what I'm doing. Excuse me, let me rephrase it. Let me turn it around. I got the two confused. Accountability, don't ask me what I'm doing. And responsibility, don't ask me to do nothing. There we go. And so the king is getting to the point to where he has unintended but deliberate responsibility to do something. He needs to protect Bathsheba. What do you mean, preach, when you say he needs to protect Bathsheba? Protect Bathsheba from them, the people, the law. She's supposed to die because of what's happened. But more important than protecting her from them, David needs to protect her from him. Him being who? Uriah. You got to remember, Uriah is one of David's mighty men. So he's no pushover. He's smart. John, why you say he's smart? He's smart because he knows how to stay alive. See, most people measure intelligence by academics and this and that's something we can put data to. But listen, do you know how to stay alive? Do you know how to stay alive? So he's not going to be happy to find out his wife is pregnant with another man's child. You know, I've often heard people talk about the differences in cheating between men and women. See, as men, and I talk about men just as a whole, us collective, you know, sometimes we can dish that stuff out, but we can't take it. We found out our wives cheating, it's going to be pandemonium. Some stuff about to get to shaking. It's about to get rough. For Proverbs says, for the woman's jealous husband will be furious, and he will show no mercy when he takes revenge. We acts a fool. So Uriah is a Hittite by heritage. He's not of Jewish descent. His folks are foreigners. We mentioned that briefly last time. His folks foreigners. But he lived in Israel. And he worships Israel's God. So Uriah is accepted. He's one of us. So now for David, the lights are on. The cameras are rolling. And it's time for action. Dave, give us a performance that will put today's limited series on the shelf. Let's see what you're working with. So in verse 6, David says, he sent to Joab. David sent to Joab saying, send me Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sent Uriah to David. When Uriah had come to him, David asked how Joab was doing and how the people were doing and how the war prospered. So David calls Uriah back from the battlefield, which was about 50 miles away. How the people doing? Talk to me a little bit. Sit down. How the people doing? How's the war prospering? Are we doing a good job over there? And then also, how's old Joab doing? Tell me serious conversation. How's Joab doing? Because see, David's got to keep a pulse on Joab. You'll read this later another time. But Joab, he's something else. One of David's last words to Solomon when he anoints Solomon king, or when he names Solomon king, and David getting ready to die, David tells Solomon, you need to kill Joab. Hey, if there's one thing you can do for your daddy when I'm dead, kill Joab, please. Handle him. So David is asking Uriah some years before, how's Joab doing? And the Bible says, verse 8, and David said to Uriah, go down to your house and wash your feet. Go down to your house and wash your feet. Now, when we see him say, wash your feet, this is not the same as when I was a little boy and mommy said, boy, go wash your feet. Your feet stink. this not that. Since this washing was normally done before bed, David was saying, go home, wash yourself up, and get in your bed with your wife. You've been in battle. You got a lot of pent-up energy you need to release. Go to your house because you got a beauty there. They really could tell it from experience. But Uriah, you got a beauty. Go and demonstrate your love. Oh, David said, there's no way this won't work. Surely Uriah will obey the king. Surely, not only will he obey the king, but surely he'll obey his body's response and joy of seeing his wife. And then not only did he tell him to go home, wash your feet, but at the end of verse 8, he says, and he sent him a gift of food from the king. It followed him. So to make sure you two enjoy each other, dinner's on me. I got a good meal. So instead of David repenting for his sins, he tried to hide his sin. And today, not only do we hide our sin, but when sin becomes popular opinion, we make wrong right just so the wrong can feel comfortable and accepted. I'm going to say that again. Not only do we hide our sin, but when sin becomes popular opinion, we make wrong right just so that we can make wrong feel comfortable and accepted. Because we can't control the habit, we legalize the habit. Because we can't stop the destruction, we license the destruction. And so in this moment, David wants to have another innocent child to not know who their real daddy is. So Uriah, go home. Get the battlefield off you real good. Have a great candlelight dinner. And then as Renata would say, playhouse. Verse number 9, Bible says, but Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his lord and did not go down to his house. Uriah camps out with the men. And so it's reported to David that Uriah didn't go home. David says to Uriah, did you not come from a journey? Why didn't you go home? Why didn't you act like a man and go home? Bible says in verse number 11, Uriah said, the ark and Israel and Judah are dwelling in tents, and my lord Joab and the servants of my lord are encamped in the open fields. Shall I then go to my house to eat and drink and to lie with my wife? As you live and as your soul lives, I will not do this thing. Uriah says, King, there's a war going on. The ark, the tangible representation of God's glory, is away in battle along with God's people. How can I desert them and go home? See, although the king brought Uriah home, although David brought Uriah home, Uriah feels like he's gone AWOL. Saints, there's a war going on. And many who should be on the battlefield, many who should be valiant warriors, they're AWOL. Many who should be fighting for the Lord, they're going home. They playing house. But they're not in the spiritual battle. Uriah's first loyalty was to his purpose instead of his power. I'm going to say that again. Uriah's first loyalty was to his purpose instead of his power. John, what you mean? He was all to his purpose as a worshiper of God. His loyalty as a soldier in the army. His loyalty to represent who his wife married, a man of integrity. See, he was not showing this loyalty to his wife by continuing to be a man of integrity. He was actually showing what caused her to fall in love with him in the first place. So he was loyal to his purpose first and not his power. See, when you're loyal to your power, you do whatever you want to do while you're at home. When you're loyal to your power, you be out of place and still win. See, purpose, not power, is what kept Uriah from complicating roof problems by adding foundation problems. I'm going to say that again. Purpose, not power, is what kept Uriah from complicating roof problems by adding foundation problems. See, power will tell you, well, it's not a wrong action. But purpose will tell you it's the wrong time. It's not time to be at home. See, there's a time for everything. If you're supposed to be at work, but you always at home, will you keep your work long? No, they're going to fire you. Well, I wanted to go home and check on my wife. They're going to fire you. If every time they look for you, you go home when you're supposed to be at work. So David then attempts to get Uriah drunk. Well, he won't just naturally go home. Let me get him drunk. But same thing happened. Uriah is disciplined. He didn't go home. He stayed with the servants. Lights, camera, action. David's performance made integrity his insult. I'm going to say that again. David's performance made integrity his insult. David was saying, he has insulted me by not going home. Uriah has disrespected my authority by being faithful. Uriah has insulted me by having integrity. And saints of God, there are many who are insulted by your integrity. They're insulted because you refuse to compromise. They're insulted because you bow down, because you won't bow down. They're insulted because you refuse to take the deal. But don't compromise your integrity for their performance. I just got that one. Don't compromise your integrity for their performance. Come on, somebody type that in for me real quick. Don't compromise your integrity for their performance. Verse 14, the Bible says, in the morning it happened that David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah. And he wrote in the letter saying, set Uriah in the forefront of the hottest battle and retreat from him, that he may be struck down and die. So now we see David couldn't get him to go home. So now David says, we've got to kill him. I've got to kill him. David has plotted the murder of an innocent, loyal, mighty man. When senseless, tragic murders happen, we often ask, how could they do this? I got an answer for you. They panicked. And this is what David did. He panicked. You are not you when you panic. I'm going to say that again. You are not you when you panic. Because when you panic, the worst you will put the best you to shame. David knew Uriah to be loyal. And Uriah was so loyal that he took this letter 50 miles and wouldn't open it. So David knew Uriah would be loyal enough to carry this letter and not even open it. He knew how to murder Uriah. And he knew Uriah could be murdered. He could murder Uriah. And Uriah would still die as a valiant soldier. So David knew he could kill Uriah, and Uriah still looked good. And not only could Uriah look good, but David could still look good too. I'm going to get to that in a minute. Verse 16, so it was while Joab besieged the city that he assigned Uriah a place where he knew there were valiant men. Then the men of the city came out and fought with Joab, and some of the people of the service of David fell, and Uriah the Hittite died also. So Joab, by orders of David, put these men in a position to lose. Not only did Uriah die, but other soldiers died too. Which brings me to something we got to realize about sin. Sin hurts the innocent. The innocent who have no clue. The innocent who are where they're supposed to be. The innocent who are doing what they're supposed to do. The innocent who are being where they're supposed to be, doing what they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do it. Sin hurts them. The loyal ones who do right, even when they don't know that the circumstances are rooted in wrong. I'm going to say that again. The loyal ones who do right, even when they don't know that the circumstance is rooted in wrong. Rooted in wrong. So Joab sends message to David. And he's going to prep his messenger. He's going to tell him, listen, when you go to the king and you finish telling the king all the details of this battle, he's going to get mad. He's going to get mad. He's going to want to know, why did you get so close to the city in the first place to fight? Didn't you realize that in times past that there was a woman who had a small rock that she threw off top of the wall of that city? And it killed somebody. It just hit him in the head. Joab should have known that. That's what Joab preps his messenger. He's going to fuss. He's going to fuss at me through you, saying we should have known better than to go to that wall because those people could kill us. That was their strong point. He's going to tell you. So just be prepared for it. So the messenger goes to David. Remember, lights, camera, action. This is all the rules. The messenger goes to David, and he gives David the details of what happened and how the enemy gained advantage over the city. And he's going to tell David, your servant Uriah is dead. That's all the king need to hear. He going to fuss, but you make sure you tell him Uriah is dead. So then the Bible says in verse 25, then David said to the messenger, thus you shall say to Joab, do not let this thing displease you, for the sword devours one as well as another. Strengthen your attack against the city and overthrow it. So, messenger, encourage Joab. Oh, look at this from David. David's response was, oh, don't worry about that. Don't worry about it. It's bad things happen. Those things happen. Just go back and strengthen your attack against the city and knock them on out. It's okay. Don't worry about that. Because this was poor military strategy that David knew made Joab look bad. Joab knew better than to put the army in a position of a winless battle. So David had to relieve the appearance of Joab's guilt, the guilt that David caused. So David's performance made guilty the guiltless. David's performance made guilty the guiltless. Isn't it something to have to play the bad guy for someone else's decision? Isn't it something to have to bear some guilt that someone else put on you? Isn't it something that you only did what you were told, but it cost you your job? Isn't it something that you only did what you were instructed to do, but that still wasn't good enough? So now you're guilty. So Joab had the appearance of the fall guy. So David, the man after God's own heart. This is truth now. This is not in spite. This is not trying to be cute. David really was a man after God's own heart. We see this same David be flippant and insensitive, cold-hearted, manipulative, selfish, greedy. So the Bible says Bathsheba finds out her husband dead, and she mourned her husband. No doubt, she ain't got a clue that David's behind his death. Remember now, David's in leadership. He knows how to keep things confidential. I got a rule of 5. If five people know something confidential, or if more than 5 people know something confidential, it ain't confidential no more. It's not. It's not. So verse 27 said, and when her mourning was over, David sent and brought her to his house, and she became his wife, and bore him a son. But this thing displeased the Lord. As far as David was concerned, this is over. This is over. The child would appear to be his. His image would still be intact. The people would think him a hero. Why would the people think he's a hero? Because he took care of one of his soldiers' wives after his tragic death. Oh, you ride died in battle, and you're going to make sure his wife is set for life. And then she's with child, so the people will say, oh, they're in love. They're in love. Nobody really knows that this was all a performance. You got to remember, Joab was in battle. He didn't know what David did. All he knew was that David told him to put Uriah in the fiercest battle so that he would die. So David knows, I've gotten away with it. But the Bible says this thing that David did displeased the Lord. David's lights, camera, and action demanded confrontation. There will be consequences because even the dark is not dark to God. Night shines as bright as day to God. That's what the Bible says. So irregardless of how David felt he got away with this, he still demanded confrontation. All right, listen, I went a little longer today, but I had to finish chapter 11. Listen, we'll pick up with chapter 12 on Wednesday. All right, listen. There may be one that says, Brother John, I need prayer. I need to be saved. I need to join the movement. I need you to help me out. You can certainly text us 228-305-0677. We'll see you Wednesday night with Bible class. We will not have prayer with Dr. Weekly this Thursday. Now let's get ready to give generously, bountifully, lavishly is how I give, because this is how God gives to me. We have several methods of doing it. Givelify Desire Nation. PayPal, the Desire Nation 2018 at gmail.com. Cash App, $ Desire Nation, and then online, www.desirenation.net. Well, praise our God. Listen, thank you for being with us and spending the first part of your Sunday morning with us. Until we meet again, thank you for being with us. Your presence has made us smile.